Woo! Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Bibliomancy for Beginners. Yes, this is a spin-off of our book club where we attempt to talk about books while drunk. There is going to be swearing. There will probably be really bad jokes and maybe some fighting. You don't know. That's normal. That's in the normal book club too. But yes, so we will be talking about a book. There will be spoilers, but we always start with a spoiler-free overall review, and I will read the back of the book for you. So if you have not read this book and don't want to get spoiled, I will let you know when you should leave, and then you should read the book and come back and listen to us talk about it because it will be great. But if you don't care about it, then by all means stay and chit-chat with us and just hang out for an hour-ish. So yeah, the book that we read this time was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, which was my pick. I'm super excited about it because I really enjoyed it. I will read the Goodreads description for you so that you know a little bit about it. Oh, that's a really long one. Maybe I'll just read the back of the book. I'm just going to read the back of the book because last time we had a really long one. I don't think we should have 2 episodes where it's a really, really long thing.
Oh, it was so
and
long
also
and
the Queen of the
pointless.
Cheerling one was so bad.
It was so bad.
Yep.
All right. Kirsten Ramond will never forget the night Arthur Leander, the famous Hollywood actor, had a heart attack on stage during a production of King Lear. That was also the night when a devastating flu pandemic arrived in the city, and within weeks, civilization as we know it came to an end. 20 years later, Kirsten moves between the settlements of the altered world with a small troupe of actors and musicians. They call themselves the Traveling Symphony, and they have dedicated themselves to keeping the remnants of art and humanity alive. But when they arrive in St. Deborah by the water, they encounter a violent prophet who will threaten the tiny band's existence. And as the story takes off, moving back and forth in time, and vividly depicting life before and after the pandemic, the strange twist of fate that connects them all will be revealed. I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good blurb.
Yeah. Okay, so overall impressions, folks. What did you think of this book?
What did you think of this book?
I liked it. It was short. It was an interesting read in the way that, like, for a while you're wondering why certain aspects of it are important because they don't seem to be. And then you see how every single one of the things that were brought up loop together into something at the end, which can be slightly unbelievable at times. But I think that by the end, I thought that it was all right. Like, it made sense.
The point of fiction, or just books, is to give a structure to life, which is kind of blobby.
Yes.
Kind of blobby.
Kind of blobby. Quote me on that. I agree. I thought this was a very satisfying collection of different points that all come together. I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was great. I unfortunately read it a few weeks ago. And by read, I mean listen to it on audiobook. So I am this bit forgetting of some important things, but I thought it was great. I'll talk about other things later.
Okay.
My turn. So I have a long and storied history of being the opposite reader of Taylor and Michaela, and that I don't like the things that they like, the things that bug me, they enjoy. And therefore, it pains me to admit that I actually kind of like this book, and I'm super angry about it.
Oh no, why are you mad?
I'm really, really angry because usually I have to be like the one person who reads a different way, but it turns out that I definitely had my issues with this book. I felt there were too many characters that were unnecessary.
I agree with that.
And I have thoughts and feelings about the way that it ended, but I agree. I was very angry with the first half of the book and like, oh, this moving through time thing and these things don't seem important. Why am I here? And then they all honestly got tied fairly well together, and I was really upset that I wanted to keep reading it and I enjoyed reading it. So yeah, an angry endorsement from me.
I want a sticker of approved by Gretchen, reluctantly.
Like angrily with my face. Just anger.
Alrighty. Okay, I think that means that it's time to move on to the spoiler section because this is a book club and we will be discussing everything that's going on, including the characters and events of the novel. If you don't want to be spoiled, you should probably go away and read and come back. If you don't care about being spoiled or you've already read it, please feel free to talk about it with us. You can tweet at us, either at us or at Bibliomancy101 on Twitter. You can use the hashtag Bibliomancy begins, correct, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then, or, normally leaving comments down below like you would on any other video.
So if you're not watching this live, you can go ahead and comment. We do curate that.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
The apocalypse may be coming now. We're not there.
Apocalypse Now.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Title. Someone should use that.
I'm pretty sure it has been used.
That was the joke, Michaela. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it has been. Remember when I said there would be bad jokes, guys? Remember? That was just a couple minutes ago.
However, I think that this is the longest we probably made it in a while without swearing, so good job, us.
Yay! All right. So we always start on a high note. Favorite part?
What order are we doing this in? Because we just kicked out the order, so.
Well, Taylor asked me, so I went first, but I don't want to go first all the time because I'm asking the questions.
Okay, fine. Well, I actually marked this down when I was first listening to it because it's a small moment that I just really enjoyed. And that is to say, there were other parts. I love the actual descriptions of the comic Station 11. I thought that was wonderful, especially as things start looping into each other of what inspired this story. How those things that reminded me a lot of Low, Michaela. And the kind of color.
Yeah.
The color swaps it was describing is very similar to the art style of the comic Low that we both like. So I was just kind of linking together for that in my mind. But what really stood out as my favorite part of this book was how when members of this acting troupe were just kind of shorthanded as like, oh, the violin, like the third violin or something. But when they were describing like the children of these people as the generations extend, you have a girl, the 6-year-old girl who was described as the daughter of a tuba. And just as a moment of description and imagery.
Daughter of a tuba.
She's the daughter of a tuba. which for me was just a wonderful little moment.
Yeah. I'll go next, I guess. My favorite part actually happened quite early on in the book, and it was just when this guy gets this frantic phone call from his friend who's a doctor saying, shit's going down, man. Everything's getting fucked. Get inside or get out or whatever. And he just goes to a grocery store and just steals, he pays for it, but steals 7 carts to take all of this food to his brother's apartment and then just lock himself in there with his bro. And I was like, I mean, I think that's a valid response to the apocalypse that's happening. You know what? I'm just gonna get all the canned goods I can and then just lock myself in, man.
It was great because he kept going back and forth because he didn't have a car, so he would just push the cart back to the apartment, then run back to the grocery store and get more. And the girl's like,
I know, and she's really weirded out.
No, and I read really fast, so I genuinely thought that I had missed the part where he unloaded the cart and took the cart back. Until I was like, no, he literally has 7 carts in the hallway. And I just love how his brother opens the door and it's just like, I see you went shopping. I'm like, what? Just okay.
It was just so good. It was a really good, like, descriptive moment that was kind of fun early on. And, like,
Especially right before the end of the world.
yeah, like, it was weirdly lighthearted in a way and, like, comical, even though it was literally the end of the world in that moment. Weird.
Yeah.
See, this is what happens when I don't go first, and it's that that for me was the moment in the book where I was completely sold on it, and on the way that it was written. And it's very interesting because Jeevan becomes, in the end, like the most unimportant character who's mostly a plot device.
Yes.
But like that moment, I was like, when I was really struggling through some of the parts that didn't connect and didn't make sense, that I kept like returning to that, and I was like, you know what, I really just believe that this book is going to pay off in the end, because I had that trust instilled in me in the beginning to keep going forward. And I think that in a book that's written like this, that's so important to have.
Yeah.
Because like if it had just thrown us into the back and the forth without giving us some kind of like solid moment to hang on to, like I wouldn't have had as much faith that it would pay off for me to keep reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was also, I mean, unless like, I don't know, because I thought of the overall ambiance of the book as well, and the way that it talked about the world after the apocalypse was really good. Like the way that, you know, do you teach the children about the way the world was but can never be again, that kind of a thing. I did think that it got a little preachy in places, and that was kind of annoying, but overall I thought that it was done really, really well and really, really interesting in a way that actually made you think.
Yeah.
Instead of then it got preachy in some places, but yeah. So that's.
I'd like you to bring those up when we do get to the negative.
I will.
Because I'm curious what you're thinking of. I'm gonna get another beer.
Bye, Taylor.
Bye, Taylor.
While he's gone, I'll do my second favorite scene so that we have another one to throw in the mix. And that was the death of the comic artist. That whole, like, descriptive scene of her slowly, or getting a phone call and hearing what's happening and not really believing it, and then, like, getting mildly paranoid and then just saying, oh no, it's psychosomatic, and then actually slowly dying. So she just goes out to the beach and lays in the sand and thinks of a line from the comic. And, like, that's all that you get from her for the rest of the book. And I was like, that was so heartbreaking because I cared about her. And I didn't realize I cared about her as much as I did until that moment.
I honestly, that was, this after you stole my favorite part, the only thing I could think of was my favorite character. And I think out of all of it, weirdly, like, my favorite character was Miranda.
Yeah.
Like, I just really liked her.
Wait, was Miranda the
comic
first?
book artist.
The first one.
The first one. Yeah.
I really liked her too.
Yeah, and so like when she died, I was sitting there going, no, of course, like the one character that I really care about is not going to make it to, like.
Especially since it comes after us hearing about all of these other characters that we've been following and hearing about since the very beginning that are still alive for whatever reason. And this one character that we really cared about, and we just get this slow, sad death scene away from everybody, stuck on an island. Like, that's so sad.
It was tough, but not just days of kind of just laying in her bed as we're like, this is good.
Yeah.
This is fine.
Everything's fine.
There were so many other people that I was just like, but I guess that's the point, really, is that you wouldn't want to really kill off a character that we didn't particularly care about. So, like, and I don't know, I mean, I think in the end, I was so upset, but at the same time, like, as far as emotional impact, they couldn't have treated her off with anyone else.
Yeah. And it was my favorite character, so, like, had to die, because that's something that, you know, if the characters die in a book, my favorite character is going to be the one who dies.
I've also ended up being really upset that, like, Arthur died in the first chapter, because I wouldn't say that he was, like, a character that I liked, but he was a character that I was interested by.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I hate it. I hate it when authors are so good and they're like, I already told you this character died afterwards. I'm going to make you care. And I was like,
It was also just well done because he was a character. He went back and forth rapidly on either hating him and what he's doing, and then finding the humanity behind his just dickishness and emotional distance.
Yeah.
So I never got a clear final opinion on him because it was just so convoluted.
That's what it did with a big character, but I was so interested by him. And like anytime seeing him or like something about him, it was like originally when I realized that he was the linchpin around all of the various POVs, I was like, this isn't gonna work. This is dumb. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then at some point I was like, oh, I care.
I actually would say he's my favorite character.
Really?
Not because he's the most likable, just because I did find his moments be the most interesting throughout the piece. Overall, I would say I liked a lot of the things. I did also like his old friend from his younger days. I don't remember the guy's name.
I want to call him Chad.
That's not right. I think it's Clark.
It's a C. I know it's a C.
I've got the Wikipedia. There's a film adaptation in the work. It's Clark. It's Clark Thompson.
I did it!
I really liked his friendship with that woman from the Lufthansa plane.
That's
Yes.
so sad.
They were just lifelong BFFs in that airport. It was really nice.
I mean, yeah.
And then he shows up later in the book and he's like the old guy with the diamond studs in his ear.
Yeah.
He's a close second.
That's only because that would be you in the apocalypse.
Old guy, diamond studs. Let me tell you about the computer.
Can we talk about how the people who were young when the apocalypse hit talk about the old world? Because I guess our protagonist was like 6 or 7 years old, 9. Okay, a little bit older. And I think the scene that really hit it for me.
No, Kirsten was 8.
Okay, she was 9, but you can't remember the year from 8 to 9, though.
Sure, whatever. In any case, the scene that really did it for me was when she was talking with her friend and she said the refrigerators kept things cold, but light also came out of them, right? I'm not wrong about that. Cold came out and light, and like the description of that was so childlike, as if because she didn't get to grow up with it, the way she talked about it still was very young.
It's in images, not in concepts.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I meant earlier about when I was talking about the way that the ambiance of the books like portrays like our world.
Mm.
And it was especially prevalent to me from the young people like Kirsten. And like, because that's not the only way too. It's like when the conversation, I think there's one of them where like, so planes didn't take off like straight up, like, and you know, just like these really random things that on the one hand, you just want to feel like, well, that's so silly. But on the other hand, you can totally see how that's confusing.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, it's a serious, the book was really, really good at showing you like the fantastical side of the world that we know.
Yeah.
How much of science fiction is in our world that like all seems to disappear right now.
Whenever it was dealing with the future, the descriptions did not feel anachronistic.
Yeah.
It did not feel like, let's say, dystopian YA sci-fi, which is really using... Sorry, I just wanted to see her face. So it didn't use convenient shorthands for like, oh, this is future, they don't really understand the world. It really reflected it in the language and in the interactions and put a huge amount of thought. Just the detail on fuel going bad after 3 years is not something I've seen in any other post-apocalyptic thing where you can always rely on, you're like, oh, we got it running. As long as you can like bottle it up for long enough, we've got a resource.
Found that car 20 years later. Nobody else found it. I'm just going to drive it out of here.
The battery's good. The fuel's good. We're set.
I genuinely had a moment where I pictured my fantasy and sci-fi teacher reading this book and going, they did their research! Because she's been like in the class with Taylor and I are, and she's harped on that so much. I could literally just hear her in the back of my head, like, and this detail, and this detail, and this detail. Like, so.
Because unlike a lot of post-apocalyptic and dystopian stories, it was trying to be realistic, not in that, like, a lot of people try to be like, this is what's going to happen if our world keeps going on the route it is, and this was like a very random chance thing that was sort of a human error that caused it, and then this is what the world would actually be like if this happened, as opposed to trying to constantly harp on the things that were being said in here. It did get preachy at times, but not as preachy as I find a lot of dystopian books are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, especially like coming from a YA readership, like I'm so cued in now to preach, like when it happens, because I feel like it happens a lot more in YA, because that is supposed to be one of the functions of YA, is to teach in that way. So like if it had been anything but like mostly subtle, I would have been on its throat with claws. I hate that so much.
Yeah.
Like, that's a real issue with this kind of topic too, though. So.
But I mean, so people often discuss how science fiction went from being like a positive look at the future to almost entirely dystopian.
Yeah.
Like, at some point there was a shift where people stopped thinking that technology and humanity was just good, and that it became, which is why a lot of people really, yeah, I think that's what it was. Like, anyway, which is why a lot of people like The Martian, because it's just a positive science fiction novel.
Well, I mean, this is like every single time my dad and I go to a bookstore, he reads science fiction and he wants to read more science fiction, but he will go through literally the entire fantasy and science fiction shelving in our Barnes and Noble and pick up every single sci-fi book that looks good to him. And he'll just be like, war, death. Because all he wants is like that positive look for the future. And he, like, so I literally have done this book by book in Barnes and Nobles multiple times every time I visit him. And it's just not there.
As someone who literally shelved the science fiction and fantasy stuff today in a Barnes and Noble, can agree. This is true. All science fiction is basically dystopian. There's very little positive science fiction anymore. There is some, but it's not as prevalent as the dystopia. And I feel like while this was post-apocalyptic, it was far less in your face about it than a lot of other ones are. This is basically just somebody saying, what happens if swine flu was way worse than it was?
But it's nice that it isn't defeatist, is really, I think, what we're coming down to.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good, because I think there's literally a point where it said this, and it's in right after you get at the airport, and it's literally a line that says something like, people were really confused how life went on, and like people expected like the movie thing to appear, the post-apocalyptic, and it addresses based on how life just like it normalized and it went on because there was nothing else to do, because humans like at our core will do what we need to do to survive. And I really enjoyed that it addressed that in a way that was very like, this is how life will actually go on, as opposed to like the general dystopia, which is like, oh, war, anarchy, revolution.
And sci-fi always seems like we survive through the worst aspects of ourselves in like the modern interpretation. So this is like, yes, we are not like perfect things, but we will try for better. Yes, so that's exactly why it appealed so much to me in that sense. Just things normalized, and while there were terrible things being done by certain people, the community is still able to recognize ethics, which was great. That was just a small, really nice thing.
While they did, there was still this element of like maybe the road where there are these people who are like bad people who are just going willy-nilly and hunting and like murdering, and the prophet sort of stands as like the religious zealot turned evil type person, who I honestly think, can we talk about him for a little while? Because
Like, because it makes me angry.
okay, I would like to hear your thoughts on this. I was a little bit unsure of what part he was supposed to play in this. Like, I don't see his role being necessary at all.
Plot device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was obvious that. So when he was first introduced, I thought that he was going to be such a bigger player in the overall plot that he was. First of all, I thought that it was super cool the way in which he ended up being connected back to Arthur. I was expecting that, but I wasn't honestly expecting it the way that it happened, and I found that his origin story, if you will, was actually quite believable.
And just excellent.
Yeah, so I was really impressed by that. But then I got really disappointed by his one-dimensionality, and then how he's just lost. That was literally because the ending of this book, and I won't talk about like this in a larger context right now, so we're just talking about the prophet, but like the ending of this book really frustrated me.
Okay.
Really and sincerely frustrated me. And part of that was just like the automatic, just like boy shooting the prophet in the back of the head, all of that tension, all of that discussion, all of the potential richness that came from that guy being Arthur's son, like, was literally just like wiped and left the book. I think I do believe that the ending of the book just kind of went from
I can agree with that to a point, but I also think that there was this moment of taking back control with the fact that there was this small child who had been living in fear, and all of the adults that
And
he
indoctrination, which
right?
the prophet came
But
in
it
as
didn't
well.
feel earned. Like,
Well,
I would have felt
no,
that
I'm
it
just
felt earned.
I was just agreeing that thematically, Michaela.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
I'm also on board with that as well. There wasn't enough to what happened.
That's fair. That, I mean, it is fair. I do agree with what you're saying, but I also think that was, I'm not sure how I would prefer him to die, because I do think that he needed to die. And I think that a little boy who sees that his entire family and everybody is terrified of this man and sees that he's going to hurt people who have been nice to him in general and are just have done nothing wrong in his eyes, protects everybody as like this symbol for innocence and like the positive side of humanity, of just like naturally knowing that this is what's going to happen and wanting to protect people in some way. I feel like that was very poignant.
I 100% agree with that. I guess my point is that I wish that it had been given enough time and gravity for me to care a little bit more.
Yeah.
I felt like all of that was very rushed. And like I literally feel more about it now that you've explained it in that way. But I don't feel like within the novel itself, it was, especially because of how big of a threat the prophet represented in a lot of the book, like this unseen threat, and then he's just kind of off. And so I love the way that it happened. I agree that's the way that it happened. I agree that he should have died. But I just personally felt like all of a sudden it was just like, pop.
I guess what I wanted to talk about is actually how little he was in this book, because he's supposed to be our antagonist and he's like not there.
That's what I wanted to talk about, because when you think about it, he is the central conflict of this book. He is literally the antagonist, and yet I kind of forget that he's technically the main plot.
Yeah.
And I don't really see this as in some ways, I don't see this as a book that needed that main plot, or at least was very interested in it. It existed as a formality.
But
it was never. It accomplished things, and the things it accomplished were interesting, but it was nowhere near as central as any other aspect of this book.
Yeah.
And it just connects to the fact that for something that I understood, and I think that the blurb as well links to, like, this is about, post-flu apocalypse world, and I was kind of surprised by how little actually happened in that world. And it's all just a backstory of, like, leading up to this flu and immediately afterwards. And then this future part is just kind of a thing of seeing how these threads have all wound together later on.
Yeah. Which I usually don't like in books. I usually, like, prefer to have a plot that I'm following, whereas this one seems more like everything that was important happened in this one moment at the beginning of the book, and then that sprung out to then at some point in the future come back together.
Mm-hmm.
But what?
So I'm just saying that's half the reason why I said in the beginning, like, I'm so angry that I liked this book, because I'm the same way. Like, I want a linear plot. And that's why the prophet makes me so angry, is because, like, not angry, it's the wrong word, but it's the word that I have right now. But, like, because I can see where there would have been a linear plot, but that plot for me is so unimportant. And, like, for me to say that is, like, crazy, because it isn't. The plot is how all these people, like, connect.
Yeah.
In a way, like, it didn't need, like, the supervillain. You know what I mean? Like, I think I love that it's his son, and I love how that's all built together, and I really love how that's built in, because, of course, in this kind of a world, that is what happened. But it was just kind of like, it was two, I feel like there was two competing.
Of all the things to connect in this world, I don't know why the prophet had to be the one who was also his son. Because I don't see that thematic link, personally.
I don't think it had a thematic link. I think it was just an easy way to connect him back to Arthur as well.
Which was so odd.
And have this, like, easy way to have the thing that exists today in the modern world of the religious zealot.
Mm-hmm. And I was interested in him as, like, the one who had read Station 11, because both my critique and my favorite part of it was just how empty he was, I suppose. Where he's just repeating these lines from the book as if he doesn't really know why he's doing it. Perhaps the most memorable part of the book was him just staring at that closed-up plane where the people had died, and him just staring into it that had never been opened, as just a strange and chilling moment.
That's another thing that really made me angry, because I thought there might be something really interesting between him and his mom, because his mom was obviously going psycho, and it would make total sense to me if, like, his mom, because he only had his mom, like, for him to have idolized her, and for, like, her to have first indoctrinated him in that way to make him into the prophet. But, like,
and how does he join the Bible and Station 11? I'm really curious about that.
But, like, there's this line in the end where, because, like, Elizabeth is gone, like, oh, Elizabeth, what happened to you? And I was just like, that was so easy, but, like, it felt like a cop-out. Because I felt like everything interesting in that plotline probably had to do with her in some way. And then...
Was she the drug addict / alcoholic wife?
I think so.
Because that was the... I, for the longest time, thought they were both... I thought that the kid might have been mentally slow. And that's why it was that he was connecting this fictional world with the religious world that his mom had. And then when we found out that his mom was, like, an alcoholic / drug addict, I thought she was, like, a born-again Christian. So then I understood the religious zealot part.
That's what I got.
I agree that I didn't understand the, like, relationship between the Bible and this comic that he got literally the day the world ended, basically.
I really wish we just had one more like part of the book, another progressing, storyline that was the mother. Really, I think that would have been fascinating.
If you want to bring his son in as the prophet at all.
Yeah.
I don't.
And give us that extra mile.
Okay, Gretchen, talk about the things that bugged you, or have you already said everything you wanted to say?
Yeah, mostly, I guess I'll just talk, because I talked about how the book got preachy in places, and that's just like a thing of this kind of style of book. Like, in a certain place, if you're taking on the subject matter, that's gonna happen in places.
There's gonna be sense.
Yeah, and this, I think, overall did it really well, and it didn't really bother me. The prophet as a character and the way that he died felt like such a convenient plot device, cop-out combination in the end that I was really frustrated by. Because I didn't need his plot, really. So the ending to me, I don't know, maybe this just stems from the way that I felt like the prophet's death was dealt with. And because at that point, since all the stories are really connecting, like I felt like at the end of the book, that kind of more linear plot could have popped out and brought something to the end of the book. But then all the plot lines connected. The prophet was dead. And I don't know, I don't know how else the book would have ended, but to me it felt like the book just went, like it just kind of petered out, like there wasn't.
So here's how I think that the book was meant to go forward. You get the death of the old world, and for all that we know, the goal of the circus was to orchestra was to maintain a touchstone on the past while moving forward, and a lot of the little vignettes that you get along the way are talking about how people are rebuilding. Like they've stabilized enough to try and start going back to where we were, right? We've reached the plateau point of the apocalypse. Everybody died. Everybody's then struggling to survive. You can't move forward until you are safe and have enough food and enough shelter. And now everyone is like, okay, so what do we want to do? Do we want to go back to the way things were? And it's sort of a look at the way things were and compared to how the people are moving forward and what elements people want to save. So people here were saving art and literature and music, and there was a museum guy and a newspaper guy, so freedom of speech and human records and all of these sort of things were being brought up. And that's what I think the thing at the end you were supposed to feel was that even after all of this catastrophic stuff that went on, life goes on and people can rebuild and get back to where they were.
And when you say that to me, I totally get it and it makes sense. I think for me, what the issue was that because I had felt so much of these characters in the middle, I don't think that at the end, I had enough of an emotional connection to the end. You know what I mean? And so when you say that to me, I totally get it. Like I said, I don't know. I wouldn't have wanted the book to end in another way. I just felt like a lot of my connection to the book kind of left in the end. That I can't even put my finger on exactly why that happened. It might have to do with the characters narrating it and my attachment to them being less, I don't know, the emotional attachment that I had to the world and the story in the beginning and in the middle died off for me in the end. So it was just, I still gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I still really liked this book, but I was left feeling oh in the end instead of oh, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why this was a National Book Award finalist and not a National Book Award winner, was that it gets really, really close and then doesn't quite do everything it needs to.
Just the two cat eyes at the base of the screen.
I'm sorry, I'm paying attention to Michaela.
Well, I can do both.
Boo
I
boo!
think Michaela was staring at the creepy cat eye face.
Boo boo! Come here, look over here. Ooh, what's happening?
There were just sinister slits before.
Oh no.
I think my only critique with the end is that while it is a hopeful ending with one of like, you know, the world is trying again, it is something very much distant.
Mm.
And I wanted it to be these characters having an emotional moment and not someone else.
Mm.
And not measuring their end by someone else starting again.
It also felt slightly like a cliche.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that would have been fixed by exactly what you're saying. Like, if it had been brought back to the characters that we cared about, as opposed to, like, far off in the distance, there are ships on the ocean.
But at the same time, I feel like I would have felt like the sentimental everybody group hugs at the end would have been cliche as well.
I don't have an issue with the final paragraph. I actually really like. No, you know, paragraphs, the pages. I actually liked the ships on the ocean. I thought that was a good detail. But I also felt like the characters had just stopped at the end, and I didn't know what they had. I feel like if this had, the ending had begun with them being like, all right, where are we going next? And then it goes into that bit. I would have felt a bit more closure on how these people have, you know, decided to approach the world again.
I think the only, like, vaguely exciting thing was that Kirsten and the Traveling Symphony were going to go to new territory. But then there was also the line about, oh, in a couple of years we'll be back. So it wasn't even like the triumphant, you know, we trust this world enough to go off into new territory and see what's out there. It was like, we're going to go out there a bit, but we'll be back.
It's just going to be a slightly larger route around these lakes.
But then again, I feel like it's too expansive to do that.
Yeah. No.
It's not unrealistic, and this book was very much focused on realism. And I also feel like the fact that all of these characters sort of flew to the winds at the end is also very realistic, because there was this one moment, which is the first chapter of the book, which ties all of these characters together, and you don't realize it until it all comes together. So it's like somebody took a pin and went, and then at that moment when you figure it all out, they like pulled the pin loose and all of the strings could be free again in a way. So the orchestra could go on and do whatever it wanted, and Clark could just sit in his museum and do whatever he wanted with that, and what's-his-face could start a new family and just live his life.
His character was a plot device. We all agree on that, right? Because he had no...
He was a sweetheart. Leave him alone.
Okay, but as a character, he had no functional purpose except for have been, like, the cause or, like, been involved in something.
So,
like, to tie more things together. I'm just saying, he was, like...
He had an interesting life.
What I cared about so many of the other characters in, like, an unusually large cast for me that he ended up standing out because I didn't care about him, and he just kind of popped up when he needed to do a thing and then disappeared. And, like, so that for me, because I cared so much about the other characters, which is unusual for me, I was like, you. Like,
that guy.
Michaela, I am going to suggest an alternative to your analogy, which was a bit confusing for me. It's just this was the Big Bang, okay, if you will. So the night of the performance was the point of explosion, and all these characters spread out from there. Because the further we get in the story, the less they connect to each other. Well, they're sort of.
The
But they're
way that
still very much set, because a lot of these characters stop at different points.
And they die.
Yeah. Or Jeevan settles down elsewhere, doesn't he?
Like, God only knows what the fuck Jeevan is. I think he's supposed to be in the Electric City.
I think I have a better analogy.
No, wasn't he a doctor in that town we saw?
Yeah, wasn't that supposed to be the Electric City that Clark points to at the end?
Well, it was just kind of somewhere. I wasn't sure
That's
which
what I
town
mean.
it was.
Jesus upsets me.
Anyway, I have a better analogy, I think. The
Okay.
night of the performance was as if somebody had pressed pause, right?
Okay.
And as it would if an apocalypse happened, and when all of these dots come together and you see all of the connections, it presses play again and they can move.
Okay.
And like in a way they can move on. And yes, we didn't get the emotional thing that I think that we needed for all of that, but I think that that's how it was. It was a linchpin moment. Like I said, like somebody stuck a pin in them and it hit pause. And everything that they were and were moving towards stopped until they found some sort of resolution. And for us as a reader, that is finally understanding what that meant to them and how they connect to all of this in a bigger sense.
So what you have is a present.
Yes,
Okay.
a present.
A present.
And I'm not going to argue with you. I believe in it 100%. I'm just going to stand my ground that was other parts of this book were so good and so great that the parts of it that weren't really stand out at you and make me sad.
I can agree with that. That's fair. That's a completely fair argument. I still think that this is one of the best books that I've read in a while, though. Like,
It was a standout book.
yeah.
Again, I had to angrily give it my seal of approval.
We know how close you hold that.
I do, especially in this book club. Usually I've taken this opportunity to punch Taylor in the face several times. I can't.
Is there anything else that you guys want to say about it?
I think I'm set.
I've talked too much.
Talk too much. I guess the only other thing that I kind of wanted to say was that I was surprised, like, this book was so well written and it had so many different ways of writing. Like, there were letters, there were like interviews, there was normal prose and sort of like short and staccato prose, and then like even chapters that were so short they were like one page and very poetic and metaphoric in a yes, I don't know, I'm drunk, or ish, I can't think of words at the moment, but like somehow all of this, which usually when somebody tries to do this, I get so frustrated because I'm like, just write the damn book in one of these, like pick one. And yet I felt like it worked in a way to have all of these to have all of these different ways, because it made it feel real, I think, is that it seemed like somebody had spent a long time collecting all of these clues and putting them together into this book, as opposed to just being a book.
Yes.
So angry.
Which means it's good. That's what she's saying.
So angry.
This is not a bad thing.
But yes, so good book. Not the best book ever. Good book. I understand why it's a finalist and not a winner. It's definitely standout. It's definitely something that will stay on my bookcase. And if somebody asks me, I will say that I recommend. I might put it in the staff picks at my library. I don't know.
You've got the power now.
I do. I have the power. I can do such things.
I've actually already recommended this to someone.
So it's a winner in our hearts.
I mean, I think it's also interesting, like, as a reader and also as a writer, because it does build in so many different writing styles.
Yeah.
I think you get a lot out of it as a reader, but also as a writer, I also got, like, a lot out of it.
A nice little manual.
Yeah.
I was, like, thinking of how many different tones there are, let alone the writing style. We talked about how there was that moment where the guy's getting all of this stuff from the grocery store, and that was very comical and lighthearted, when there was like a dinner party scene that was so anxiety inducing and sort of depressing, and how everything was coming together in that scene.
And everything was falling apart.
Exactly. And like those are two moments that sort of mirror each other that should have the opposite tone, and yet the fact that they have the opposite tones made both scenes better. Like, very well done, just in general.
Yeah.
So yes, read this if you have not read it. If you have read it, tell us.
Recommend.
Yeah, tell us what you thought about it, and if you agree or disagree with the things that we've said. Next time, which we don't know what day exactly we're meeting, we're going to be reading a graphic novel, so you have no excuse. It should take you no time to read it. Taylor, you want to talk about it because it's your pick?
It's really good. It is called Death Vigil, written and illustrated by Stefan Sajek, who is he's a very good illustrator, and his probably other best-known work is Sunstone, which he also wrote and illustrated. He illustrated Rat Queens for a time as well, and has done a lot of things like that. This did not sell very well for primarily just distribution reasons, although he has promised, despite the kind of financial risk, that he's going to do a second arc as well. This is the first. It is long, it is funny, it is action-packed, it is gorgeously illustrated.
It's so pretty.
It's so pretty. Death Vigil, Stefan Sajek.
And obviously, if you don't want to have to remember that, there are social media links in the description of this video, Goodreads, as well as Twitter and Instagram and all of that stuff, which we haven't been as active on. We'll use that more over the summer when we are more consistent and timely. Like, we do that every 2 weeks versus once a month, so we use the social media more then. In any case, the Goodreads is always there for you as a tool to tell you what we're reading and about when we're going to be doing a live stream.
Yes. Also, it's about the, servants of the Grim Reaper fighting necromancers. I forgot to actually say what this book is about.
So, classic. Well done. All right, I think that's all that we have for you guys tonight. Do you guys want to shout out where people can find you on the internet if they care?
Yes, I do. So, in case, because I don't actually think that we introduced ourselves at the beginning of this video, so very retroactively, I am Gretchen from the blog My Life is a Notebook. You can find my blog at adkwriter15.wordpress.com. I am on Twitter and most other places, honestly, as adkwriter15, Twitter, Instagram, stuff like that. I'm on Facebook as My Life is a Notebook and Goodreads under my name. This is very important because Michaela and I also run a YouTube channel, which is, possibly where you found this on. So good job, you. But that falls under our Betwixt the Books headline, and we release, at this point it's like 4 to 5 videos a week because we are insane.
Yeah.
So, sometimes we're alone, sometimes we're together. Sometimes we even let Taylor in the treehouse, even though it's really, really hard for me to let him be there. But yeah, if you don't already follow that channel, you should do it.
I helped build this treehouse. Thank you very much. I'm Taylor. You can find me at ET Greenwood on Twitter. I think I'm Taylor Greenwood on Goodreads. I'm not entirely sure. Michaela made me count for me.
Yep, definitely Taylor Greenwood.
I also really need to pee, so now that I've shouted myself out, I'm going to run.
He also has a Twitch.
Oh, right, yeah. Telade, so Telade. I play video games badly on the internet.
Run away.
Bye, Taylor. I guess I'm the last person. My name is Michaela. I have a blog called The Pied Piper Calls. I'm on almost every single social media as @Pied Piper Calls. I also do Twitch stuff if you want to watch me play video games badly. Although Taylor and I discussed on my last stream how maybe I'm not bad at video games. In fact, I'm very good. I just play hard mode all the time. Because we were talking about how in Bloodborne I was using a dex-based weapon and had no points in dexterity at all. So I was just strong-arming the whole time of just constantly trying not to die. and winning for the most part and losing a lot at the same time. So there's that. Again, videos come out on the YouTube channel, Gretchen and I Do It. Tomorrow we will be doing, well, the video came out today, but tomorrow on the blogs we'll be having a wrap up where we talk about everything that came out this week. And if you are new, that is a great resource for you to go and see the sorts of things that we do. I talk about comics and books, and Gretchen talks about young adult books, which is very different. So we have a very wide breadth of things that we like to discuss. Yes, I think that's everything. So we will see you then. Taylor's gone. Oh well, he doesn't get to say goodbye.
He's not important. We are.
Alrighty. Good
Bye,
night,
guys.
everybody.